This is the Italian Citizenship Podcast, hosted by Marco Permunian and Rafael Di Furia.
Hello there, and welcome to another episode of the Italian Citizenship Podcast, presented by Italiancitizenshipassistance.com. Of course, we are back at it again with Italian attorney Marco Permunian, and I am Rafael Di Furia. And today, I wanted to talk to Marco a little bit about the Permesso di soggiorno per attesa cittadinanza, the permission of stay to remain in Italy while waiting for citizenship, and specifically regarding how it might relate to somebody who would be filing a case in court for citizenship in Italy. But Marco, can you tell us a little bit about this special permesso di soggiorno and more or less how it works?
The permesso di soggiorno in attesa di cittadinanza is a special residency permit which can be granted to somebody who is living in Italy while waiting to become an Italian citizen. Unlike other kinds of residency permits, this specific residency permit can be obtained directly from within Italy, meaning that it is not necessary to obtain a visa before being able to obtain a residency permit for people awaiting citizenship. In fact, as we said in many other videos, normally a person who wants to relocate to Italy from abroad needs to obtain a visa through the local Italian consulate. There are many types of visas: the student visa, the digital nomad visa, the retirement visa, and so on. And then once the visa has been obtained, the person can relocate to Italy and must request a residency permit from the local questura within 8 days from the arrival in Italy. But that is not the case for those who are awaiting citizenship, because in those cases, a residency permit can be requested directly to the questura without the need to obtain a visa. With that being said, generally speaking, this specific kind of residency permit is normally requested by those who have filed their citizenship applications through an Italian municipality. And that's because in those cases, it's possible for the applicant to travel to Italy with the purpose of applying for citizenship by descent, and the law allows them to enter the country as tourists and to file an application to become residents upon arrival if the intention is to apply for citizenship by descent. And then if the process takes longer than 90 days, it is necessary for them to apply for a residency permit, the so-called permesso di soggiorno in attesa di cittadinanza, which will be basically automatically granted to them on the condition that they have started a citizenship application through an Italian municipality, and more specifically, the municipality where they chose to establish their residency. With that said, a lot of people have been asking us if it's possible to obtain a residency permit of that kind after an application has been filed at an Italian consulate outside of Italy. And unfortunately, the answer is that it's not possible for somebody who requested citizenship through an Italian consulate to obtain a residency permit, because that is something that is granted to those who have the necessity to reside in Italy while their applications are being processed. And it's not a necessity to be able to reside in Italy for those who have applied for citizenship through a consulate, because they need to wait for the decision of the consulate, and then they can relocate to Italy as Italian citizens.
Thank you, Marco, for this general overview of the permesso. And in regards to those who might be interested while pursuing a court case, is there any way that this could potentially apply to them, or that they might be able to take advantage of such a permission of stay to remain in the country?
The law indicates that this residency permit can be obtained only by those who already legally reside in the country, which is why it is mostly a residency permit which is granted to those who either have another residency permit or somebody who filed an application for citizenship after relocating to an Italian municipality and establishing residency from a legal standpoint. With regards to those who reside outside of Italy and are filing through the courts, it is hard to imagine that a questura would grant a residency permit to them, because they don't reside in Italy as the law requires. They are somebody who resides abroad and who is petitioning to become an Italian citizen through the court while being represented by an Italian attorney However, there might be situations where somebody who is petitioning the court might be able to obtain a residency permit of this kind. And more precisely, for instance, if you already petitioned for citizenship through an Italian municipality and for whatever reason you now need to petition the court, it is highly likely that a questura would take into consideration a request for a residency permit because the person in this case was already residing in Italy from a legal standpoint. Or for instance, if you were already residing in the country for other reasons, like you were working in the country or you were studying in the country and you now have to petition the courts for whatever reason an application at the municipality is not possible. In that case, I also believe that a questura would take into consideration a request for a residency permit in attesa di cittadinanza. And with that said, the law doesn't really specify whether a residency permit in attesa di cittadinanza can only be requested by those who applied at the comune, or if those who are going through the courts can also obtain it. And that would be basically a gray area. But I would believe that the most reasonable interpretation of the law should allow those who petition the court in these circumstances that I just mentioned, and maybe other circumstances that we're not considering in this video, to obtain a residency permit in attesa di cittadinanza, as long as they are already residing in the country when they make the request.
Well, very interesting, Marco. So for somebody who might then not have the ability to get this permesso, what other options would they have in front of them to be able to reside in Italy, to be able to make Italy their home?
If you reside abroad and you're petitioning the courts to become an Italian citizen, that can be at times a lengthy process. So a lot of individuals are interested in relocating to Italy in the meantime while the process to get citizenship continues. And there are, of course, several ways to get into the country and relocate there and establish residency in Italy from a legal standpoint, even before these individuals get Italian citizenship, because, of course, once citizenship is approved by an Italian court, there is basically maximum freedom of relocating to Italy. That is the highest level of freedom. Having Italian citizenship will allow you to freely relocate to Italy at any point in your life without having to make any prior arrangements. So once you have an Italian passport, fly to Italy, you find an apartment that you like, you establish residency, and you become an Italian resident. And the residency rights apply to your spouse as well, even if he or she is not an Italian citizen yet. But taking a step back, those who are in the process of applying for citizenship through an Italian court can relocate to Italy from abroad by applying for a visa. And there are several types of visas that are available to those who want to relocate to Italy long term, and some of them were recently introduced by the Italian government and are very interesting. For instance, the digital nomad visa is a visa that was just recently introduced by the Italian government that is meant for those who are freelancers or remote workers and can prove that they have a 6 months experience in that position and that have at least 25,000 euros roughly of income per year. And a visa that was also recently introduced by the Italian government is the investor visa, which is meant for high net worth individuals who can make considerable investments in the country, whether it's an investment in an LLC or a startup company or government bonds. The investment per se will allow you to get a visa and a residency permit fairly quickly. There are also other types of visas and residency permits that are offered by the Italian government, such as the retirement visa, which is meant for retirees or people who have passive income that allows them to support themselves in the country without having to work or seek unemployment, or the student visa or the work or self-employment visa. Those are also very popular options that will allow the applicants to relocate in the country fairly quickly.
So Marco, of course, we're talking about the situation for somebody who's interested in getting recognition of Italian citizenship, specifically through their ancestry. But of course, if you're living in Italy with this permission to remain, this permission of stay, there are some differences in what you can and can't do potentially versus what you might be able to do as a citizen. So could you tell us a little bit about some of the differences between being a citizen of the nation and just having the permission to remain in the nation?
There are some differences between those. who reside in Italy and have a permesso di soggiorno in attesa di cittadinanza, and those who are already Italian citizens. And probably the most important difference is the ability to work. In fact, it's not possible to work while you reside in Italy on that residency permit, but it's possible to seek employment. And in fact, it's possible once you find an employer to convert the permesso di soggiorno in attesa di cittadinanza into a work permit. Furthermore, of course, the residency permit has a time limit. It's possible to renew the residency permit, but you do need to take care of the renewal. If within 1 year you have not become an Italian citizen, you will need to do a process with the questura to renew the residency permit for as long as the citizenship process continues. You will have to maintain and renew that residency permit, as opposed, of course, to those who already have Italian citizenship that do not have to renew anything, if not their Italian passport every 10 years. But regarding their ability to stay, that is pretty much unlimited. And finally, another major difference is the ability to sponsor the spouse for them to be able to remain in the country, because those who have a residency permit cannot sponsor their spouse immediately. They need to wait for the residency permit application to be finalized, which means that initially the person who's applying for citizenship will receive a temporary residency permit, a temporary document, which will be replaced by the final residency permit, which will be delivered in the mail roughly 6 months after the initial application was made, at which point they can sponsor their spouse to be able to remain in the country. Instead, somebody who already holds Italian citizenship can sponsor their spouse to be able to remain in the country immediately upon relocation to Italy or immediately after receiving Italian citizenship.
Thank you so much, Marco. And just to round out this episode, can you just give us a quick, just brief rundown of what we spoke about before, about the permesso di soggiorno in attesa di cittadinanza, and if it might be possible for someone to get one if they will be waiting for a court case, and what options might be available to them?
In short, what we covered in this episode was that the residency permit in attesa di cittadinanza is a residency permit which is meant for those who already reside in Italy and have initiated a process to become an Italian citizen. The residency permit was originally meant for those who were going through the process through an Italian comune, but it's safe to assume, especially with the increasing number of individuals who petition the court, that those who already reside in Italy will be able to obtain a residency permit, even if their application is not being filed through a comune, rather through an Italian court. It may be much harder for somebody who reside outside of Italy to relocate to Italy by obtaining this residency permit. If they simply petition the court through an attorney to obtain citizenship, it might be much more advisable to look into alternative visas and residency permit for those individuals to be able to relocate to Italy, even if they have an active pending citizenship case before an Italian court.
Well, thank you so much, Marco, for making yourself available for this episode of the Italian Citizenship Podcast. Of course, for more information like this, be sure that you are subscribed to this YouTube channel, as well as the audio-only podcast. But of course, if you're subscribed to the YouTube channel, that means you're not only subscribed to episodes of the Italian Citizenship Podcast, but also episodes of Ask the Italian Lawyer, as well as the Italian Real Estate Podcast, other projects where Marco and I get into the details and logistics of making Italy your home. And for more information about life abroad and living abroad, be sure to come over to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Rafael Di Furia, or you can search for Not Your Average Globetrotter. But of course, again, we have been here with Italian attorney Marco Permunian, and I am Rafael Di Furia. Stay safe and healthy out there, and we'll see you all next time. Thank you.
Thank you.